I'd like to call the meeting to order. Becky, would you please do the roll call?
Okay. Bart Beatty's absent tonight. Andy Beegan,
Present.
Polly Kavner. Tony Gonsalves.
Present.
Gregory Greenleaf. Hudson Hayward.
Present.
Mary Hobson.
Here.
Haley Coots.
Here.
And Ryan Larson's absent. Jim Moulton.
Present. Kim is running late. She will be here.
Okay. Amy Spelke's absent. Frank Wright.
Present.
See Lydia. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to consider action to elect a chairman pro tem. Do we have a nomination?
Hudson Hayward.
Frank is nominated and Jim has second. Any discussion? Should know this by now. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thanks, you guys. Well, first, let's kick it off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please join me, everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Next, item 3.1, to consider action relative to additions or adjustments to the agenda. Before I accept a motion, I've got a couple tweaks I'd like to make. So the first adjustment is I'd like to strike item 6.5, and I'll speak about that when we get to that part of the agenda. I'd also like to table 6.8. I'll talk about that reason for that when we get to that in the agenda. And then I'd like to add a moment of silence under recognitions for the Appalachia School. And then we're going to move the executive session number 6.14 to follow the calendar updates. So I would now entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mary, seconded by Frank. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you guys very much. And then next, we're going to move on to 3.2, ask for comments from the audience. Anyone looking to speak tonight? Looks like we're good. So thank you all very much. Andy, thank you for being ready to serve as the dutiful carrier of the clipboard. Next, we'll move on to section 3.3, recognitions and acknowledgements. So to start us off, I'd like to observe a moment of silence in commemoration of the 23rd anniversary of the terrorist attacks of September 11th. Thank you all very much. Next, I would like to observe a moment of silence in memory of Janet Wilk, a former teacher at Mount Arad High School. Thank you all very much. Next, I'd like to observe a moment of silence in memory of Jackson Byrne, a 2023 graduate of Mount Arad High School and a student at Region 10 Technical High School. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to observe a moment of silence in memory of Joseph W. Larrabee II, Topsom School Board member, then director of MSAD number 75 board from 1966 through 1973. Working first as head custodian at Mount Arad High School, then completing his career in MSAD number 75 from 1973 through 2004. First as building and ground supervisor, then transportation director. Thank you very much. And lastly, I'd like to add a moment of silence for the 2 students and 2 teachers who were killed at the Appalachia School in Georgia yesterday. Thank you all very much. Moving on to brighter topics, we would like to acknowledge and appreciate all the stellar efforts of the custodial staff and the buildings and grounds personnel in preparing each of our schools for opening day. My perspective as a Bowdoin parent, things went smoothly. I don't know what you guys saw, if any of you were interacting with the schools or if you have anything to add there, Heidi, but bang up job as always.
It was a really awesome start to the school year. I actually made it out to every single school on Tuesday morning. Got to see the kids getting off the bus and then walking around the schools, and they were ready and their desks were all set up and teachers were prepared. So it was a great start. So far, so good.
Fantastic. One
Yeah.
day at a time.
One day at a time.
We'd also like to recognize the staff at Bowdoin Community School and the district facilities and technology departments for their hard work preparing the school for occupancy. When a surprise abatement project threatened to disrupt the start of school in Bowdoin, these folks put in many summer hours moving classrooms and equipment to be ready for students. Plans were executed to keep any student impacts to an absolute minimum, and I can say, interjecting, successfully so. Many staff members are without a home base for at least several weeks while the abatement process is completed, but they continue to work with students every day. We wish to recognize them for their incredible flexibility and the support of Bowdoin students. As again, parent of Bowdoin students, I've observed this firsthand, and I have nothing but the utmost respect and gratefulness to everybody. And I look forward to hearing updates on the abatement process down the line. Mary.
Are we going to hear more about that later on? Just checking.
Excellent. Next, we would like to, yes, acknowledge the receipt of $888,500 from the Midcoast Parkview Health Community Health Improvement Fund for the Mount Ararat Middle School Motor Brake Revitalization Project previously presented to the board, and in accordance with board policy to consider action to accept said funding. Moved and seconded. I would like to request your approval to adjust, let's say 88,000. I think I said 800. 88,500. You guys cool with that? Thank you. Thank you. Great. We've got any discussion? We saw a great presentation. I think it was just our last meeting, right? It was just in August. So kudos to Megan for making it happen. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous of those present. Good work, Megan and the whole team over there. And I look forward to hearing Chris's project come for acceptance, hopefully at some point soon.
Yes.
All right, well, that wraps up 3.3. Moving on to section 3.4, we have no announcements or correspondence to add today. So now 3.5, Lydia, what's going on?
Yes. So the senior class, we are currently planning for homecoming, and that's going to be Saturday, September 28th, September 28th. So planning for that. And then I also wanted to give an update on Mount Ararat Field Hockey's Drive Out Cancer fundraiser that we had this past weekend. This year, we successfully raised $13,012 for the Midcoast Children's Program. And in total, this was our 10th anniversary. So in total, we have raised $108,112.
Bravo, bravo.
So a lot of work has been put into that for the past 10 years. So I just wanted to touch upon that. And thank you to anyone who donated or supported in whatever way they could.
That's great. That's super great. Cool. Well, have a great, look forward to hearing more about homecoming once it happens.
Thank you.
And I believe Ashby is on the way back from a track meet, so cross-country meet, thank you. So maybe he'll arrive later. We shall see. Oh, gotcha. So if you guys don't mind, maybe we'll let him speak if he does come in late. We'll see how it goes. All right, moving on then to, as you all may recall, we have tabled item 4, the approval of minutes, because they're not ready yet. And so we'll move on to section 5, old business. Moving on to 5.2, to consider a second reading and adoption of proposed revisions to KCD, public gifts and donations to the schools. Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. Thank you both very much. I have no points to add to this. We didn't make any adjustments based on what we brought to you guys in August. So hopefully everyone is happy with it. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you very much on that. Then next we have item 5.4, to approve the memorandum of understanding, or MOU, with Cat Hance Mobile Home Park, CMJP, in relation to the request for the water main transfer to the Brunswick Topsom Water District.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. Thank you guys very much. Are there any updates? I think when we last spoke, we were all very supportive of the project. Just wanted to make sure our lawyers had signed off, Andy.
That is correct. It went around. Sean did a great job with Heidi, vetting it, getting it through Peter Lowe. And so, yeah, I even saw the language a while ago. So it
Awesome.
looked good to me. And
Great. Any questions from the board? Marilyn, anything you want to add, or? I think we're ready to say yes. So all those in favor? That is unanimous, those present. Go forth and build, Maryland. Do it. Yes, we like that. Section 6, new business. We'll start with 6.1 to consider the board member code of ethics policy, BCA. Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. So you guys may recall when we were doing our board evaluation, we were looking at the SACO policy, and one of the things that they did every year is they reaffirm their code of ethics as a board. Something we talked about starting to do here. This is not something we've done, but it seemed like it was a good idea. So we are here today to reaffirm that. This has not been adjusted by the policy committee. It wasn't seen necessary to adjust, but this is a moment for us all to say, yes, we believe in these principles as board members and how we will conduct ourselves. So any questions or thoughts, Frank?
Yeah, my thoughts are that we should do this every year
I agree.
and reaffirm it every year so that we have a sense of what is our mission. And I think it would be useful if we reaffirmed it every year, and that's what I would like to see happen.
I think that's pretty great, and I'll say at least Amy's on team do that too. I feel comfortable speaking for her in her absence today. Any other discussion or comment? Yep.
And to read it into the minutes
Oh, okay.
so that it's read in, so
Yeah.
everybody knows what we're doing.
I would be happy to read it in the minutes on behalf of the board if that's what people would like to see. Just to be a minute to, excuse me, get it up. I think I've got it right here, but thank you. Actually, if you've got it, maybe you can get it faster than me. All right, so file BCA, the board member code of ethics, reads as follows. Having accepted the challenge of service on the MSAD number 75 Board of Directors, board members accept the principles set forth in the following code of ethics to guide them in helping to provide a quality education to all the children of MSAD number 75. A, board members view service on the Board of Directors as an opportunity to serve their community, state, and nation based on the belief that public education is the best means to promote the welfare of our people and to preserve our democratic way of life. B, board members will at all times think of children first and base decisions on how those decisions will affect children, their education, and their training. C, board members will make no disparaging remarks in or outside board meetings about other members of the board or their opinions. D, board members will remember at all times that as an individual, each has no legal authority outside the meetings of the board and will conduct relationships with the school staff, the local citizenry, and in all methods of communications on the basis of this fact. E, board members recognize that their responsibility is not to operate the schools, but to see that they are well operated. F, board members will seek to provide an education for all children in the community, commensurate with their needs and abilities. G, board members will listen to all citizens, but will refer all complaints to the proper authorities and will discuss such complaints only at a regular meeting after the administrative solution proves unsatisfactory. H, board members will support a decision graciously once it has been made by the majority of the board. I, board members will not criticize employees publicly, but will make such criticism to the superintendent for investigation and action if necessary. J, board members will make decisions openly after all facts bearing on a question have been presented and discussed. K, board members will refuse to make promises as to how they will vote on a matter that should properly come before the board as a whole. L, board members will not discuss the confidential business of the board at home, on the street, at work, online, or in any other location. The place for such discussion is an executive session. M, board members will confine board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, leaving the administration of the schools to the superintendent. N, board members will welcome and encourage cooperation and participation by teachers, administrators, and other personnel in developing policies that affect their welfare and that of the children they serve. O, board members will endeavor at all times to see that schools have adequate financial support within the capabilities of the community and state in order that every child may receive the best possible education. P, board members will resist every temptation and outside pressure to use their position as a school board member to benefit themselves or any individual or agency apart from the total interest of MSAD number 75. Q, it is the expectation of the board that members be in regular attendance at board meetings, special board meetings, workshops, and committee meetings. The board also recognizes the importance of fulfilling the responsibilities of their positions as elected officials. Board members will endeavor to attend meetings, recognizing that their presence means representation for their town. If a member of the board is unable to attend meetings on a regular basis, that board member is expected to consult with the chair of the board or committee about continuing in the position. R, board members will recognize at all times that the school board of MSAD number 75 is an agent of the state, and as such, they will abide by the laws of the state and the regulations formulated by the Maine Department of Education and by the State Board of Education. S, board members will make every effort to be informed and knowledgeable about the issues facing the local community. And there we have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Any further discussion or questions? Mary?
I just want to clarify, we have norms.
The norms is a separate document, which I believe is also, yes, that's next.
I just wanted to clarify that this is part of our policy manual.
Correct.
This one, I don't remember being part of our.
The board norms is not part of the policy manual. It doesn't have a code. It doesn't live on the website. It's a board document, at present at least.
That's just, I just remember reading this and I'm like, okay.
No, that makes total sense. Gesundheit. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of reaffirming our code of ethics? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you very much. Next, item 6.2, as Mary has teed up for us, to consider action to re-adopt the MSAD number 75 board norms.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. So just to re-explain, the board norms arose out of internal board workshops in 2020 and 2021 as sort of a document guiding the way that board members conduct themselves with each other. It's not elevated to the level of policy. It hasn't been adopted via, first and second read, but it is a document that the board uses to guide our interactions with each other coming out of that. And we've used it at workshop. We've discussed it at workshops and continue to look to it. So any questions or discussion about the board norms? Please.
One small question, only because I understand that this was a practice. We had a workshop, we came up with norms. But we already have our code of ethics.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, I guess we did adopt them as norm, but I just don't know where they.
Yep.
Like,
What I would propose is that this is sort of part of what will eventually become sort of our redesigned board handbook, is sort of one of my special projects for this year, right? That orientation book becoming a more active handbook that we can all look to. And so it'll be an item that lives in there, and it's not elevated to the level of policy. Again, if the board felt like, you know what, it should be, that's a discussion we could certainly have. But at present, and for the past, 3+ years, it has been a document that is internal to the board, not elevated to the level of policy, but which sort of governs the way that we look to interact with each other, and which we can fall back on. If we're having problems, we can remind each other, hey, per board norms, we're supposed to be dealing with this like this. Like, is there any way we can find a way to get back to that? So what I would propose is that it will sort of live in a handbook once special project is complete, where it's available to us along with other documents. But I think that because it's governing our behavior, it's important for the board to review and affirm it in that regard. But so to be my thinking, that's just me. Other people have thoughts or opinions about it, but that's just where I would come from. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of Amy, who's not here, and she may have different opinions, right? So I don't want to presume. I can totally see that argument, but I could also say that it served an important function once, right? So, yeah, please. Holly.
So I'm really big on semantics. Semantics matter. And if this is something that we want to move forward in adopting, I would encourage us to maybe look at the way some of these things are worded. For example, know when to listen and when to speak seems a bit harsh, in my opinion. And I would encourage us to maybe edit that to say, be open or be aware of when it is appropriate to speak versus not, or something along those lines. The filter of body and nonverbal language is not sitting well with me at all. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And while I can't say that I have ever been absolutely disrespectful with my facial or nonverbal language, I can't pretend to say that that has not been something that I've been challenged about before in other professional settings. And so it's a work in progress, but that doesn't mean that I'm trying to be mean or disrespectful or unprofessional. It's just something that I am acutely aware of that I continue to have to work on for myself. And I'm sure that's true for others with other things on this list. So kind of to Mary's point, while I understand and appreciate that I feel like we have to have some standards of conduct, code of ethics are really where our values and morals stand with what we're working with. And norms should be, yes, maybe in some kind of understanding, but I don't necessarily feel very strongly that we have to outline this so harshly,
Mhm.
for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Frank?
Yeah, Holly, I would like to respond to you a little bit. In the past, we had several workshops, and we were really, really concerned about making sure that everybody had the same general feelings. And so that was why I deliberately asked to have the code of ethics read in, okay? Because those code of ethics actually do govern everything that we do, because they're part of our gig. The norms were developed as a way to implement those, and but the driving force behind it was the code of ethics. But tweaking the language is an easy thing to do.
Yeah, sorry, Holly.
And thank you, Frank. I think that's really great context. I just know in other boards that I have sat on and sit on currently, that while we work from our code of ethics, we are not necessarily, we don't have to have established norms to be professional and respectful. And so I feel like we are in a position where we have applied for this and we take these roles very seriously. And if we are governing ourselves through the code of ethics, then these should be understood without needing to be put into a hard and fast rule, if that makes sense.
I totally follow you. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable point of view. Kim?
I don't want to misspeak, but because I think the original adoption of this was before my time on the board, right? And I think before the time of a lot of ours. So it's my understanding, and my colleagues who participated in the origination of this
Which I believe was just Mary and
can
Frank. At this
correct
point.
me. Yeah, I'm sort of looking over my shoulder. I think the idea of sort of writing this down was also sort of a product of an era where meetings, as I
Right.
understand it, often had a contentiousness about them. And, I mean, the other observation I have, kind of looking at BCA as compared to this norms document is, BCA is really about the character of the role of a board member in a very holistic way. And the norms document is really about, I think you used the word conduct, Hudson, it's sort of our personal conduct in meetings or in other kinds of communication. And, maybe it's ripe at this moment on the board for the policy committee to take up at some point, like looking at BCA in our copious free time. It may not be the first thing we take up. Maybe there's a couple of ethical components to add there that are actually just really about ethical conduct in meetings. In other words, pulling in the concepts of the norms into BDA and just, kind of synthesizing it there. And the norms really become tips or reminders in the framework of like a handbook or something like you were imagining, Hudson.
No, I think that's pretty reasonable. Another thing that I was gonna offer to the group, which again, I don't think we need to make the decision this moment, is we could also have a short workshop incorporating discussing the norms and what we feel the role for it in the future is, right? Like we, I might suggest we're in a position where it makes sense to vote on adopting it for this year, but then work on what do we want to do for future years? You know what I mean? Like that might be the right course of action, sort of what we're teed up to proceed, but then rethinking either through the policy committee, through full workshop, determining what do we need? Do we need this? If we need it, should it be different? What role has it served? What role do we need it to serve? Questions that I think we could all get into and be pretty productive about, right? But probably not most conducive to do it without a lot of warning in the middle of a meeting like this, which again, is not to say that any of your points are wrong. I think they're all absolutely right. And worthy of consideration. So I don't know if people have thoughts about that. I see Holly's got thoughts, which I love.
More question, in kind of moving forward with some of this, to what level are we, like, what's the expectation to be held accountable to these? So if people are not following the norms, is there a mode in which we can, like,
How do we put these into practice essentially?
right, like how,
How do we hold people accountable?
So
exactly,
what
right?
I would say, based on my experience as chair, which is I think the most useful experience I can offer to the group, is there were some instances of conflict. And in those instances, the board member who felt there was a violation of the norms could reach out to me and said, hey, listen, we're having a problem. And I said, okay, great. Would you like to address this together? Would you like me to talk to this person directly and sort of find out what that board member was looking for? That doesn't mean that I did, everything that board member asked, but I sort of used that to help guide what was appropriate and then have a sort of a, I'm going to say restorative conversation, but that makes it sound fancier than it is, but sort of just work to, hey, how can we come together and work together? Because we're all here, we're all elected, we're all here because we care about the schools, we work together, right? I'm lucky to say it didn't happen a ton my year as chair, but it did happen a couple of times. And that's sort of how it functioned. It was less about in the middle of a meeting, point of order, you're in violation of the norms. Although that could, in extreme circumstances, I don't think that would be utterly inappropriate, but I think it's more effective for all of us when we can more calmly try to work our stuff out. And points of order in the middle. Points of order are great. Use a point of order appropriately, but doing it when heated isn't necessarily conducive to finding a way to work together. Does that sound right and make some sense? Awesome. So let me say my statement, and then I'll point to you, Mary, not to you. Actually, you go first, then I'll talk. So go for it.
I just want to reiterate, what you were saying that.
I think your mic is.
Yeah. That was something. I mean, I feel like these are, I feel like these were notes taken after a workshop and they aren't like formalized at all. Yeah, it's like.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know if they're.
You two would know better than the rest of us.
Yeah,
We'll go like that.
my recollection was that we worked through the series of workshops. The workshops went well, but we had members of the board who refused to go to the workshops. And so we were trying to come up with a way to help regulate the meetings that would make it a more congenial atmosphere rather than back and forth and arguing all the time. Because we were meeting until after midnight nights. They were long meetings.
That's rough.
And it was very, very difficult, but we finally got to a point where we thought we had some norms that we were going to adopt. And then we couldn't get people to agree to adopt these norms.
So,
But these were the norms that
They
we
were,
came
they
up
were what we
with.
came up with, but I
Right.
don't know if we intended for them to be voted on every year. Yeah, I mean, if we keep doing this, it's like,
here's what I'd like to propose. Again, you guys are welcome to agree or not agree. I propose that we move forward with the vote to adopt, which again, you guys can vote how you'd like, but I sort of feel like we've got some precedent set up to proceed with that plan for tonight. But I think that I will report back to Amy as the chair, that the board wants to investigate both the substance of the norms and the role of the norms moving forward, so that by the end of this school year, we'll sort of know, do we have a workshop where we revise the document? Do we have a workshop where we decide we don't need it? Does it just live in our handbook and we don't vote to adopt it? Sort of work through some of that so that in future, the board is sort of weighed in on how this can both serve us, but in the way that we want it to. Does that sound reasonable to folks? Because I think this is a lot of useful conversation. Jim?
A couple of things. Holly, I appreciate your candor in speaking about you wear your heart on your sleeve, and with no ill intention, sometimes we can guess what you're thinking. I look at these, I think I would hope that all of us could look at these and say, geez, I really ought to. I can ramble on. Keep things concise, wait your turn to speak. That's not something I do easily. And I also probably don't, I wear my heart on my sleeve as well. So rather than seeing those, Lydia, I'd like to ask you, are norms in any of the classes you take, is there ever conversation about the codification to some degree of norms? You're a senior. There are people, I'm sure, in your classrooms, in your classes who could just keep talking through the whole class. Are there norms?
I've definitely been in classes. I think it was more common in like middle school or elementary school where we discuss like classroom norms, and we'd have a whole list and we put it up on the wall. And also for some of my sports teams, we did that during preseason for many years. We discuss our team norms and what our beliefs are and the big things that we wanted to focus on. So I think norms are definitely a great way to organize a group, but a group as professional as this and in this new era that we have, I'm not sure if they're necessary, especially with this code of conduct, but yeah.
Thanks. So my personal comment is this is helpful for me. I think when you put them in the handbook, make sure I get a copy.
Yeah, so yeah, that's sort of why I sort of feel like I think it's worth the board taking time later to discuss how this can best serve us in a better venue. So with that said, any further discussion? Let's proceed on the vote to affirm the board norms. All those in favor? All those opposed? So I think just the two opposed. Any abstentions? Excellent. Thank you all very much. And I look forward to the further conversations. I mean that genuinely. So thank you all. All righty. Next, we have 6.3 to consider action to appoint Jenny Cloutier Austin to a position of behavioral strategist at Mount Ararat Middle School at Masters Step J for the 2024-25 academic year, retroactive to a start date of August 27th, 2024.
So moved.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. Heidi, any discussion, any information for us?
Yeah, so we're really excited to be able to fill this position at such a late time and actually have her start when the school year started. Jenny comes to us from Carrie Ricker School, which is an RSU 4, and where she served as a special ed behavior teacher for the past 4 years. But she also worked for Margaret Murphy Center for Children in Auburn for 14 years. So we're really lucky to have somebody with such experience. She has safety care training. She's a behavioral health professional. She uses applied behavior analysis and de-escalation strategies. And so very well versed for this position that she is at the middle school.
Fantastic. Any questions or comments? Oh, I lost a sneeze, the worst. Sorry. Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Welcome, Jenny. Very exciting. 6.4, to consider the approval of a review of KFR procedures for community use of school facilities.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. So as the policy chair, I'll introduce this. This is the revision of our fee schedule, essentially, following the review work the policy committee did with Heidi in the spring and early summer. You'll see on the cover sheet sort of what adjusted. There were not dramatic adjustments to content. There were some rates that were changed specifically regarding the lights on the athletic fields. But more than anything, we sort of reorganized it to try to make it easier to understand where you fell within the thing, have a unified chart experience, as opposed to sort of jumping around like the old one. So any questions about that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. The amendments are adopted. Next, we had item 6.5, which we have stricken, and that is because at the time the policy committee finished this, we weren't sure if that form would be replaced by a digital form. And since making this agenda, we have confirmed with Heidi it will be a digital form. So there's no need for the board to adopt any KFE. And at the next meeting, I will request an agenda item to strike KFE1 from the policy book, because you don't need it anymore. So there we go. That's why that got stricken. Rescind it. Yeah,
Rescind it.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Or remove. I don't know what language you use, whatever that will be.
Following.
You
I
are
was trying to
following.
Question you.
Yes, no, I appreciate you, Kim. So that's what's up with 6.5. So moving on then to 6.6, to consider the approval of a review of KFE2, community use of facilities flow chart.
So move.
Moved by Frank,
Second.
seconded by Mary. This is an amendment of the flow chart. It exists in color digitally, so it looks, you can sort of see the end results with different colors. But again, this flow chart existed. We updated it to reflect the new language, which again was creating these fee classes, where it would say before see fee chart A, see fee chart B, see fee chart athletic. We made up these sort of fee classes to help clarify things. And so this is just an updated version of the flow chart. The layout visually is a little more straightforward, and it uses the updated language. So any questions? Mary?
I just want to say, I really appreciate the way you have the cover sheet now.
Oh, good.
Very nice.
That was something that we talked about on the policy committee. I thought it was a nice way to reduce the number of questions we got from the board and to sort of lay out for anyone who's curious, here's why and how and et cetera. So I'm glad to hear that, Mary. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you all very much. Next, we're going to move on to 6.7 to consider a first reading of proposed revisions to board policy JHB truancy.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Haley, sneaking in there. I like it. This came to the policy committee because our truancy policy hadn't been looked at in a little while, and there are updates to the regulations. And truancy and absenteeism are one of the major issues facing education across the country, but especially, in particular the state of Maine post-pandemic. So we reviewed it. The updates were relatively minor. We included some language that was in the MSAD sample that was clarified regarding some other age brackets. But more than that, it was a little bit of work just to keep us in statute. So that is what that is. I will also add that there's a JHB-R that will come at our next meeting with the second read of this, that they're updated in tandem. But the updates to JHB-R are in line with the updates to this, pretty minor. So any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you very much. We have tabled 6.8. We got some later than anticipated notes from our health staff in the district. So we'll be updating that to reflect their feedback and bringing that back to the board soon. But that's the deal there. And with that, we can move on to 6.9 to consider action to approve a proposed job description for a temporary data entry position
So
to the MSAD number 75 business office.
so move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. Heidi, do you want to explain this to a little bit for us?
Yeah, so I brought this forward when we recently lost our business manager. We needed to update a few things, and in order to help support some of the reports that needed to be sent out and met, we created a job description for a data entry person, and that's the sole function of that, is to support our accountant and making sure that those numbers, really somebody that's very detail oriented can help to support that and make sure we are have all the reports and timeline that we needed.
Fantastic. Any questions for Heidi about that? And I assume this fits within our budget line, given our staffing in the budget office. We did in the business office. We're doing fine.
Correct. Yes, it does.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you very much. Glad to get you guys some help in there, Heidi. Item 6.10, I'm going to read this carefully. To request approval to transfer expenditures of $150,000 for the costs of Bowdoin Central School transformer repairs from construction contracts, capital renewal, DW account as listed to account as listed, district-wide school improvement bond.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. So Heidi, do you want to explain this a little bit to us?
So when we met with the finance and facilities, we talked about moving, we had a transformer that was in the budget. And so the 150,000 we discovered could go into the school-wide improvement bond. And that way that would free us up some money in the general budget to be able to do a few more of the things that we had listed on really Sean's punch list. And so it's with the allowable costs in the school improvement bond. And we said we should take advantage of that so then we can begin working on our master plan.
And so would I be safe in saying we had some savings and our expenditures under the school improvement bond that allowed us to cover this without sacrificing projects or adding any expenditures?
That is correct.
Any, Andy, yeah, as the chair of the finance?
Yeah, well, just to add to that, I think we're still maintaining almost a $500,000 contingency in that bond. So I thought it was a great use of the funds.
That sounds wonderful. And based on a side conversation Andy and I had earlier, I do want to say thank you to Sean for his excellent work, both in planning all of these district-wide projects and their funding. His eye is very on the ball, and I, for one, am very grateful for it. Awesome. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you very much. Item 6.11, to consider action to amend the contract of Assistant Superintendent Amanda Hersey, Educational Doctorate, ED, by granting her an additional $4,000 in compensation for the 2024-25 academic year in consideration of having attained her doctorate.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. Heidi?
Need to be able to give Amanda that money that she so well deserves for the work that she did on her doctorate. It's part of our administrator's contract and it had just not been added to Amanda's. So we have added that and I'm just thankful for it. So thank you, Amanda.
I will second all of that. Well-deserved, certainly.
I just want to say congratulations, Amanda. Dr. Hersey. That's awesome.
Second.
And then I would be, again, safe in saying this was budgeted appropriately. It just didn't make it into her specific contract, correct?
Correct. Thank you.
Excellent. Just wanted to say it on the record. Any further question or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you, Dr. Hersey. Next, moving on to item 6.12, to consider action to amend the contract of Director of Facilities Sean Johansson by increasing his salary to the annual rate of $98,000.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Haley that time. I heard it over there. Heidi, you want to talk to us about this a little bit?
So at the last year, it might have been the year before that, we used to have a energy manager, which we had funds in there for that. And when we lost that energy manager, we never filled the position and Sean took on the duties of the energy manager along with all of the things that he does for Director of Facilities. And after doing a study of area facilities directors, Sean was one of the lowest paid directors around the area. And then in working with Sean, I negotiated a new contract and it should have been in his contract at the start of this year, but didn't make that in there. And so we're moving that forward to have his annual rate at the amount listed at $98,000.
Excellent. And budget impacts, we're looking good on this? Okay. Great. Any questions or comments? Andy?
I just want to add, Sean's been great to work with. He's doing a great job and he deserves every penny of it. So.
Amen to
it was,
that.
Awesome.
Amen. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Once again, that is unanimous of those present. Feels good to reward people appropriately. Thank you very much. Item 6.13, to consider action to increase one Title I teacher position from 0.8 FTE to a 1 FTE at both Bowdoin Central School and Harpswell Community School.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Mary. Heidi.
So yeah, Amanda's here in case I miss anything on this, but we are increasing that to a full-time position. We had some money once we realized through the Title I grant that would allow us to increase those positions to provide more of those services. And when you're talking about the Title I, certain amounts of money have to come out in ratios. Correct, Amanda? Yep, okay, thank you. And so once we balanced that all out, we knew we had some money and we could provide those supports in the locations that they needed the support, and that's why we're asking to increase it.
Great. And I, again, presume that there's room in the budget to cover that, or the Title I grant, rather, to cover this.
Correct, in the Title I grant there is.
Excellent. So no effect on the general budget. Any questions or comments? Jim?
Just the increase from a partial to a full is such a wonderful thing. In a full-time position, my experience working in lots of schools is you get more than a full-time experience. Whereas any of us who have worked part-time jobs or stitched together multiple part-time positions, that's a difficult thing to do. And it's great news. I think we'll get great value for the expenditure.
Thank you.
Agreed, Jim. Agreed. Seeing no other comment, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Congrats to Bowdoin and Harpswell. 6.14, we have moved to the end of the meeting, so moving on to section 7, the committee reports and board chairs report. 7.1, the board chairs report. Not a lot to report on tonight. The MSMA Fall Conference is in October, as a reminder to everybody. Registration materials will not be released for a little bit, but we'll keep the chair and Becky and Heidi will keep their eyes peeled on all of our behalf. But you all may receive emails directly from the MSMA, as we often do, so that'll be coming. In addition to that, Amy refreshed everyone's inbox, I think this week, with the MSMA resolutions for the delegate assembly. And I believe at the next meeting, we'll be giving instruction to our delegates on how they should vote, or if we don't want to offer any commentary on anything or anything like that. So read through those, be prepared to discuss that at the next meeting. And I will say, you will notice that I am on the slate to be elected to the MSMA Board of Directors. So hopefully you guys don't object to that. No, absolutely not. It's only a couple Saturday meetings a year. Yeah, exactly. No. You have to be a board member, I think, to be honest. So
Yes.
you're safe from that. I wouldn't have done it if that was going on. And then other than that, I will report back to Amy on her discussion about the board norms, so she's ready to shepherd our conversation throughout the rest of the year, which should be great. And then moving on to 7.2, the August 14th Board Transportation Committee meeting.
Oh, I can talk a little bit about that. I don't
Cool,
remember
because I think
the
Bart
name.
is the chair of
Yeah,
that, right?
Bart is the chair. We thought.
I was there and so.
Oh, Mary, yeah, okay. You went.
Well, I mean, I think that we basically just sort of looked at whether we wanted to vote for a chair, right? And then to look at I think we did talk a little bit about the buses people passing buses and trying to get a handle on some strategies to work on that. I think when we discussed that. So I think basically from what I could understand was that she was going to do some things on the website, and also she's working in conjunction with the police officers to make sure we have some kind of anyway, that they follow up and are there to offer, watchful eye for buses while they're stopped or whatever.
Speaking as a board member, not as the chair pro tem, I noticed in Bowdoinham this week, actually at Kathy Montejo, former board member from Bowdoinham's house, she's got a sign that says "Stop for School Buses" that she put up. And it made me wonder if there was a sense there might be some efficacy if there was a district-wide sign campaign where signs are put up at people's homes. And again, I'm not saying the district could afford to put a sign at every parent's house, but maybe some kind of distribution of simple, literal, just like stop for school buses and that's it. Just like spreading it out throughout the roads. I have no idea if that would be effective, but something maybe to think about as you guys work with Katie or as you work with Katie, Heidi. That's just a brainstorm based on my experience this week, but I live in terror. My kids getting off the bus, they get off on a curve and it's like if someone's whipping around on a curve and doesn't want to stop, it freaks me out.
Yeah,
So,
no, the numbers are, I mean, the number of times that those offenses happen are astounding, actually. And I do, and this is sort of an aside, but I do know other districts. I just saw in the news that Orono has a whole campaign to stop it. So it's not only our district.
yeah, no, it's,
Just many districts in the state. And, but anyway, that is front and center on her radar, on Katie's radar. And the other thing that we talked about was the calendar. Were you there, Frank?
I was there.
I thought so.
Been a while.
I know, right?
And we sort of decided that the calendar was we would have a meeting as we needed, sort of.
I think that is appropriate.
Is that what we decided?
We decided one in November and one in
Okay, there you go.
April or
Thank you,
May.
Heidi.
Yeah, sort of quarterly
For-
kind of a
I think
structure.
I've sent invitations to everybody for the transportation committee.
Right.
It's, you can come if you want, but it just wanted to let you know that that was the
That's
date in
correct.
November.
That is correct, yes.
And I just jumping off that, one of the things we talked about at the end of my time as chair and the beginning of Amy's is establishing a regular calendar, but not every committee needs to meet monthly or super regularly. So that's totally fine that you guys as a committee found a schedule that seemed to work for you. I think that's great.
And the other thing that we did discuss, and I don't know if this is, it wasn't on the agenda or anything, but we did talk about the electric bus and that we did actually get that fund.
With the lottery position.
We were awarded that one. And now moving forward, where do we go from here?
Cool. If you want to jump in, I know that Heidi was planning to talk about it in her update, but she can
Yeah,
answer the
so-
question
So
now.
we did receive the notice that we were awarded the rebate for the electric school bus. And obviously it's a budget need because it was $200,000 and we have some time. So at the November 6th meeting, we'll be talking about electric school buses and whether or not we want to move forward to accept it. And Katie has been working diligently to work with CMP and to get all the details that we need in order to make that decision of whether we want to move forward. But there are budget implications to it. So we want to make sure we have all the details and ready to go. If this is something that we choose to move forward with during this next school year.
Cool. That is great. Jim?
Just another comment on the school bus passing. I have been up at Owl's Head at the camp, and a friend came up from Portland, and his drive happened to take him up Route 1 behind buses from districts that shall remain nameless. And I asked him, did they pull over to let cars pass? And he said, no. And one of the things that I have always noted, coming down the Litchfield Road, that our buses, to my experience, when there's a number of vehicles behind them, look for ways to not be an obstacle to traffic, which if there were to be an advertising campaign, something along the lines, we look out for you, please look out for us. Because that action on the part of the drivers, that respect in terms of safety, because that can be that person who's just, they're 10 minutes late. And now they're behind a bus and they may take a risk that puts more than just themselves in danger.
Yeah.
But a wonderful, I appreciate the districts, and it seems to me to be a systemic. It's not a single driver. It's a systemic.
I experienced that this morning. A bus driver pulled over
Yeah.
so that we could pass.
As did I. That's
Yeah.
pretty common on Route 24 in Bowdoin,
Yeah.
where I often find myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good practice. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, here we go.
I just wanted to comment on the passing of buses. I think we've said it before, but it's a $250 fine if you pass a bus. And if you do it a second time, you get your license suspended for 30 days and you could kill a kid. So just, keep that in mind. Be
And I believe most of our
responsible.
buses have cameras to catch your license plate. So if you
Yes.
do it,
They all have cameras.
you will get
and-
the ticket. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really good point too. That shouldn't be the reason people are careful, but it helps.
Yeah.
Holly?
Oh, goodness, I think I lost my question. Hold on, it'll come right back, I promise. Oh, so on the same kind of lines, is there any potential or maybe we can do some extra research and that can come to the committee meeting, but I'm thinking about the school buses and maybe making some more like glaringly obvious ways for them to be noticeable from like around the corner, right? So I know a million times I'm running back roads, you're zip, 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 and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, there's the bus that I didn't see at all. And that might be part and partial to coming like passing on the other side. And then the other thing, I don't know, I don't have an idea, but I live on a main road and I cannot tell you how many times people have come flying past as my daughter is getting dropped off on the opposite side. And so if we can remind bus drivers to make sure they're dropping off on this side of the house and not on the opposite side of a major road, that is like just a small thing, I guess.
Well, but some of the routes require the crossing of the street though by a student.
Does it?
Yeah, that's not, because not every driver goes both ways on a road.
Right, right, right.
There's plenty there. So I think that's one of
But
those things where when possible,
Right.
that's ideal. But I think there are a lot of times, especially like my daughter's route is a big loop, right? There's no doubling back on that.
Yeah.
It sort of depends. but
Yeah, so I know I stand up at the top of my driveway and almost put myself in the middle of the road.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you're gonna hit me before you hit anything else. And so I don't know if we can put like dummies in roads and things like that to start scaring people, but yeah, thank you.
Applauds to Katie and her mission. And the board is supportive, Heidi. I think it's safe to say.
Yes.
Next, we have the August 14th Board Facilities Committee meeting. Andy.
I'll try to keep it brief. I've got like 45 minutes of notes here. So Sean has been very busy. So our meeting, we made a schedule. We're going to meet every month. We're trying to hit the opposite Thursday before a board meeting, right before the opposite of the CIA meetings. So in general, that's how they flow. Those are all, Becky put them all on the calendar, so that's awesome. Thank you, Becky. Facilities, modification request, we already went over that, so I won't belabor that. Cadence Mobile Home Park, we already went over. The one thing I did want to point out that I should have earlier, Cadence came back to us, wanted a larger water main going to their park, to serve their park. Brunswick Thompson Water District still maintained a 2-inch water service meter to that. So they weren't requesting any additional capacity, or service. So the MOU spoke to that. So if you read in your board packet, it actually says no impacts to water service pressure, quality, or quantity, as a result of the what's going on at the mobile home park. So that was just the important thing to point out.
Jim's got a question real quick.
Sure.
So are you saying they asked for a larger pipe? And yet the valve that would feed that pipe remains the same size?
So yes, it actually goes, so they're tapping off an 8-inch water main.
Right,
They're going through a 2-inch meter pit with a water service meter. And then or a building, I don't know which, but it's neck down to 2 inch.
2
piping.
inches worth
And then
of
it-
water can go
right.
through it.
So what they're doing is planning, if there was something in the future that, this would allow, they didn't want to waste money twice. So they
Right.
said, let's just put it in big now. They would have to come back to the school and say, hey, we have a new idea. Will you guys buy into this? This MOU lives and breathes on that service account inside the Brunswick Thompson Water District. So that'll send a red flag. It'll re-engage the school district to
Right.
say, hey, we're opening up this contract again for other reasons.
Okay,
Sorry
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That was good.
Yeah. So, sorry, I didn't do that before the vote, but I just remembered. The MAM's building envelope, and the bond, all the school improvement bond projects. So phase one is obviously underway. Most of the interior work, the painting has been done, doors and windows have been done. They're working diligently, a little behind schedule, not completion schedule, but for the summer, I think the hope was to get the siding all on the outside. They've got a lot of the rock wool and the strapping up, and they're starting on the siding. So they're a little bit behind. And we're only worried about the noise, the impact to classrooms. So Sean said, we're just gonna have to monitor it and see what's going on, and if they need to stop because it's disruptive, then that's what will happen.
Gotcha.
Already mentioned the healthy contingency that exists. So we've only used 25,000 of that 500,000 contingency so far.
Is there a point at which we will need to spend that contingency, or are we sort of able to sort of sit on it for a while? It's okay, if you don't know the answer, that's okay. I think it's a question.
I don't
Brian
know how
tells-
the finance part works. I know with most of those revolving loan funds, if you don't have an interim loan, if it's financed right from the start, you're already paying the full amount,
Right.
in principal and interest. So the money's sitting in the bank, just waiting to be drawn. And
Cool.
so yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry. Didn't mean to
Yeah.
derail us.
And then all the capital construction projects, he's got a lot of them, so bear with me. Bowdoin Central School, they got the transformer replaced. We covered that. And that's all done, I believe. Is the pavement all buttoned up now? Because it wasn't at the time of the meeting. This meeting was on the 14th, by the way, so a lot has been done in almost the 3 weeks. We got carpeting at Bowdenham in some of the classrooms. The roof got replaced in the 1992 section. The ballasted roof got a new membrane. The middle school elevator is in now, so that's all done. Woodside, the building envelope evaluation is underway, and at the meeting, they were waiting on the 19th to get a report back from them. So we haven't actually I haven't gotten the information back yet, but I'm sure that Sean has it, of what happened and the findings there. They were gonna do some thermal scanning and do some studying. Woodside, they got their kitchen floor all done. Transportation lighting, 100% complete, new LED lights. Locks and key upgrades to elementary schools. So I can't remember, is that one mostly done?
So our process was we were going to start with all the elementary schools, and a couple of them are behind. So whoops, we're going to our key card entry. And so they've been working really hard this summer to make sure that they have access points and around each of the buildings, but some of them aren't done because the people that are doing this for us are a little bit behind. So a couple of our schools don't have that, but they've switched back to using the regular key until we have it completely finished. But it's well in process.
Signage upgrades for elementary schools, middle school, classrooms, doors to be identified. It seems like a minor thing, but I'm sure in times of need, it's probably a pretty critical thing to know what rooms are which.
Yeah.
A lot of savings in the middle school paving project. I think it was, 130,000 roughly in savings, because they didn't have to replace the gravel out there. They just reshimmed it, and they did study it. They cored it and sampled it and determined that it didn't need to be done. So they regraded it and paved it. And you'll see that, Bowdoin Ham got new pavement, Bowdoin got some pavement, middle school got some pavement. So a lot of paving projects have been done. And they've been pretty busy with that. The other things that he's working on are intrusion alarms, got a replacement at Bowdenham, sump pump in the basement of Bowdenham. And then the abatement update at Bowdenham. Originally, Sean was telling us that it was looking like, well, maybe it's going to be closer to December before we get the building back, but he made some calls, got a contractor to start immediately on the vermiculite abatement, taking that out of the school. So I believe 2 rooms have been completely redone in that old section, and I think turned back over. And they're just gonna keep chugging. He told me they were gonna stay there until it was done, and it's looking like maybe mid-October
Oh, that's awesome.
timeframe
That's great.
to get the building back together, so. that is awesome.
Bravo.
Yeah, so he's been busy. He's been really busy. So that's it.
Cool. Thank you for that. Next, we have 7.4, the August 14th and 27th Board Policy Committee meetings. On the 14th, we met and discussed many of the policies that you saw come for first read tonight. We had a really good, productive meeting, working on all of that. I don't know if the policy committee members have anything to add, but you've seen most of what came out of that, with the exception of the procedures, which will come in tandem with the second read, so we stay in sync, but that was really good. And then on the 27th, we met to discuss Title IX updates. Title IX is the sort of sex harassment federal framework that got updated this year. And so we have several policies, AC, ACAA, and ACAB, plus ACAB-R and ACAA-R, that are all impacted by Title IX changes. So Kim, as a resident outside of her board duties, expert in Title IX work, helped work with our lawyers on a first pass. So what came to the committee had actually been fully vetted by our legal counsel, which was great. And so we were able to review all those policies and procedures. And we're going to be bringing those to you guys for first reads next week. There's one bit of language that Kim and I are going to try to finish tweaking, just regarding, we sort of need to juggle old procedures and new procedures staying active. And so there's the language that describes how to determine that. We're going to adjust a little bit, but broadly speaking, they were in really good shape. And we had a really good, productive meeting talking about that, which was great. So yeah, I don't know that I have a ton to add beyond that. And then I don't know if any of our policy members want to add anything, but that's what I would say. And then before I move on, one thing just to add to the general meeting that I forgot to say is I believe at our next meeting, we'll be voting to adjust the makeup of the finance committee, since we've sort of moved who our Harpswell rep is and we need to appoint a Bowdoin rep. So just expect to see that on the next agenda. Just thought I'd put that out there. Then 7.5, the August 19th cooperative board meeting. Jim.
Mary and I attended the board meeting, and I guess the most important piece of information that came from the board meeting is attendance. 400 students, up from roughly 300 or 320 at this time last year. Understanding as the year starts, there will be, those numbers will change, but a significant gain. And one of the things Mary and I have talked about this, that the demand for the hands-on opportunities represented. So it's not just the specific skills or the knowledge, it's the way school happens there. That's part of the draw. The summer programs they run for the 8th graders to give kids a chance to see what's going on. So highly successful. The bridge, which does need to be replaced, if anybody who's been to that building, the primary entrance is over a bridge, which is currently standing on scaffolding and being checked regularly, but that's moving ahead and working that the actual bridge will be built off-site and brought in modularly to replacement, which is going to go well. They've got a new JMG instructor coming on board through the Jobs for Maine grads. Another exciting thing, we've heard in the CIA committee about dual enrollment classes with the university, and seeing that kind of relationship now being formed with both UMF and negotiations with UNA around some shared work through the vocational program, dual credential. So that is an exciting way. Maine Educator magazine cover contest, go Vogue 10, did well. But again, I go back to that strong number, fully staffed and ready to go. So it was a good report.
That's awesome. If I may overstep my pro tem nature today, It occurs to me that we haven't seen like a presentation on like what their program is like in a couple years. We've heard their budget presentations, but whereas we hear from like Alan Lampert regarding adult ed sort of yearly, might be nice for the board to hear sort of like what's going on with the Region 10 program, because it's really excellent, and I think we should hear about it. Pardon my overstep.
And Hudson, what I'd just add to that, it is, and I'll be up next with a CIA committee meeting, but how can the two, how does it meld? It's not a dividing line, and the work that's going on around the 4-year comprehensive high school, some of the plan out at Brunswick Landing, and the energy and thinking that's going into that. What can be learned? And not one-way learning, but both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Jim. And with that, how about 7.6, the September 5th CIA committee meeting?
Moving on, my first full meeting as chair of that committee. I didn't sleep well last night. I always sleep well. We started this meeting. We've asked, and Amanda's done a great job, and the principals to bring stories, a brief story of impact, so we hear from the field, not only calls for curricular change or a new program or something, but something that's working. And we had a presentation from Kelly McCarthy at the middle school around her use and the students' use of an online tool called Gizmos. Gizmos is a manipulative, it was one of the early ones. It's been around for a long time, but it's obviously evolved with great strengths. So it was just wonderful to hear. And we learned also that she had such little time. It was such a wonderful story, but I did say, can I come visit and see it in action in the classroom? And both she and Megan said that would be okay.
Oh, that's great.
We did hear 3 requests for curriculum. And I will go in reverse order the way they're listed here, actually in no relation to the order they're listed here. The first was a math fact lab from Rich and a team of educators, of teachers, and the assistant principal from Woodside School. And the key of this is they want to come to grips with mismatches between their ELA proficiency and the mathematics proficiency on the annual testing, that they see some significant divergence between those numbers at both those middle grade, those late elementary, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And they want to, that mathematics fluency, it's not, and this was what was interesting about it, that the tool they want to use, Math Fact Lab, focuses on growing fluency, mathematical fluency, rather than automaticity. Memorizing your math facts, absolutely critical. You got to know what 6 times 9 is. You've got to be able to snap that off, but to do something with it, to go to larger numbers than they describe. And this is where the stories, I think, I'm going to keep saying this, are so important, because they describe not only the child by using this tool, because it provides models and methods for doing increasingly difficult or complex mental calculations, and in a gamified to some degree, because there are levels you get to move through. But not only for the child who needs that foundational, and the foundation is so critical, but with room at the top, describing 5th graders who are now with ease doing things like 42 times 17 mentally, which is a great strength, that capability, the mental gymnastics. So a vote of the committee, absolute thumbs up on the use of that, with an encouragement from the committee to become a skunk works, to come back with the results of, does it work? And Rich was clear. One of the questions that came from the committee was, why would this be good for everybody? And Rich's insistence that we need to look at it first. I want to see it work. I don't have the confidence, or do I want to put my stamp on it yet? Second, News ELA is a tool which allows differentiation of lexile of the same content, so that a teacher who's doing a unit on volcanoes can get an informational article, which is also available with the same core information at up to 5 different Lexile levels. Again, room above, room at a lower Lexile level. And the Math Fact Lab, the funding from that comes from in-house funds available, no new funding. Newsella, $200 per class, total of $600, again, coming from within their
The allocated.
funding. And great interest on the part of teachers in using that, great success. The last piece was the honor roll conversation with the middle school. Such a complex issue. Everyone wants to, encourage and support and not simply put names on a list, but do it for a purpose, to create a goal that kids want to work through. Megan presented a well thought out plan, which grows on the foundation of work with significant parent involvement. And the greatest, what they had found was that in the current model they were using, too many kids ended up on the honor roll, given what they had. It failed to take in, it did some averaging that allowed you could get good grades, but not be meeting the guiding principles,
Habits of work.
the work habits. So I get good grades, but I don't turn anything in and, but I know all the stuff. This is going to pull them all together. And again, an awareness that it's a work in progress as well. This is not necessarily the final, but again, approval of the committee on all 3 pieces, we would recommend they move forward. Thanks. Questions? Or corrections?
Very good.
What I will offer really quickly is my thanks to you, Jim, to Amanda, to Heidi, and to Amy, who's not here, as well as to Becky, for getting the questions in the agenda ahead of time. I think it's nice for the board members to know what we're going to be asked to approve. So thank you all for that coordination. I know from experience that's not always easy, so bravo. I see a question from Holly.
Can I ask a
Of course you
Jim?
can.
And it's moved, okay, there we go. The apps, did they happen to mention how, like, if there's the ability to do the work at home?
That is a question, and again, with no ignorance, but my first time out, I thought that same question. And again, I was watching the clock. Amanda had, I'd like to say, put the fear, not the fear of God, the fear of the assistant superintendent in me to watch the clock. But that's a question that I did not ask. I'm going to assume, because they mentioned that it was going to be made available through the ClassLink for the work at Woodside. Do they have access to ClassLink from home? I'm asking a question, but you're asking a critical question that in this case was not asked directly, but should have. Frank?
Yeah, but the kids don't take home their laptops in the elementary school, so that kind of access is kind of reserved for the school. So I would say that would be the approach they're taking.
Amanda, if you want to add something, you're welcome to. Great. She says Frank is correct for those listening at home.
I'm Mr. Right.
I
Boo.
would encourage you to take that back. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Holly?
So the only reason I was asking is because my youngest absolutely adores doing, I think it was like IXL. There was a particular app.
Yeah.
I don't think it was IXL. I'm getting my apps confused, but there's a couple different applications.
Lexia, I know
that
gets
you-
used a lot.
Yeah, Lexia, thank you. That's
Lexia.
exactly what it was. And she constantly was like, can I do it at home? Can I do it at home? Because she got really proud, like she was very proud of herself when she would be able to accomplish things at home and get herself kind of like ahead of the game. And so I would encourage Jim and others when kind of talking about these apps, not maybe necessarily like having devices to go home, but maybe an option to have a portal that they could have access to that application, but at home instead of in addition to at school.
Haley?
I was just gonna say that this, as far as I could tell, isn't like a main curriculum. It's like a supportive curriculum that they're only going to be using like 10 minutes a day at the beginning of or end of their class. And I think a really cool part of it is that it's very specific to each kid. So if someone's behind or ahead, they can tailor it to the kid that's using it and can change timing and stuff on it if they need extra time on their problems and stuff. So it's more of a supportive thing, not like the full-blown curriculum.
Great. And with,
I would like to make a motion that we accept all three of these as one item. The honor roll changes, the math facts labs, and the news Leah.
any objection to taking this vote as a slate for members of the board? All right, anyone want to second Frank's motion?
Second.
Seconded by Haley. So we're gonna, 7.6A, 7.6B, and 7.6C will be approved as a slate. Any further discussion or questions for Dr. Hersey or Jim? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous of those present. Thank you to the CIA committee and Dr. Hersey and the educators who helped make it all happen. Excellent. Section 8, the superintendent's report. Heidi.
Okay, so we have a couple of resignations. Daniel Alley Ward, a special education paraprofessional at Mount Arrett Middle School, and Laura Bellini, as a Learning Commons paraprofessional at Williams Cone School. And then also we have Cheryl Burnham, who has been serving as our accounts payable in the business office. So we have those three resignations. Opening day enrollments, we have enrollments, but I'm going to hold off on talking about that until the next meeting as we get closer to the October 1st child count, because those are the numbers that we actually work from in order to make a lot of decisions. So I'm going to make sure we're a little bit closer because we still have students coming in and students leaving. So I want to have that. Andy did a really nice job updating on Bodenham Community School and the abatement process. And as I was out there this week, things are looking really good. There's a lot of work happening. We were really pleasantly surprised that we were able to open up those two rooms closest to the gym side of the building. The Learning Commons and the art room, I think is what it was.
It would be
Learning
the,
Commons,
yeah,
the art room
the
and
music room?
maybe the music room. Yeah, something at the end.
I'd like to pivot really quickly, and
Yeah.
something we should have added to our acknowledgements at the beginning is the work that the Bodenham Public Library has done in concert with Chris Lajoie and the community school and bringing what's called in Bodenham the Story Dory, which is a trailer full of books
Yeah.
to the school to let the Learning Commons program work outdoors during this period of time, which I spoke with our librarian, Kate Kucko, this morning, and it was really cool to set up, and all the kids are getting to continue their experience of checking out books and focus on reading, which is awesome, while the Learning Commons is inaccessible. So
Yeah,
bravo to them.
exactly. And lots of people, lots of support out there. And obviously, every teacher and staff that's working in the building, really, there were no complaints. Everybody did what they needed to do to come together and be able to open on time for the children. So I'm happy about that. We are moving forward with our strategic planning. I had another meeting today with our company that we're working closely with. I've put out a plea for people to join the steering committee. I've sent it out to our local town managers, town clerks, law enforcement, but if you know anybody that's really interested in being on the steering committee, please just send them my way. I need about 30 people, 25 to 30 people, and I think I'm at 11 right now.
Okay.
So I'm still looking for people. So that is moving forward. Our first in-person meeting for the strategic planning and the steering committee will be on September 25th at 6 o'clock. And again, once I have names, I will send invitations to those that have official invitations to those that are interested in being on the steering committee.
I can't remember, forgive my ignorance. Did we appoint a board member to the steering committee?
We had Amy that was on, not to the steering committee.
So maybe we should, is that something you'd like? Because we could appoint someone at the
Yes.
next board meeting. if
That
you'd
would be
like.
a good thing to do.
All right, so think if you want to be a board member appointed, next board meeting, we'll make that happen.
It's 6 meetings throughout the year. The first 2 will be in person, September 25th and October 23rd is the second one, and then they're monthly until April. But it's only 6 meetings for 2 hours for the steering committee.
Great.
And I'll send that information out again this week, so you all have that.
Thank you, Heidi.
And then the only thing I will replace instead of the Bodenham and the child count is the situation that happened in Georgia yesterday. You know, we did the moment of silence. And again, school shootings are really big. But what I want to say is that I am really proud of our district. First of all, we all have our Centegix badges now, and this is our crisis alert system. And the school in Georgia had just implemented this 1 week prior to the incident happening there. And were able to quickly locate the shooter, whoever, pushed the button and sounded all the alarms, and students locked down, staff locked down, and the 2 resource officers were quickly able to go and apprehend this person. It could have been even worse than it already was, God forbid. But I'm so proud of our district for taking this on, and our technology department, Nick, who has spent endless hours, hours putting this together and getting it ready for us. And also with our keys badges, you'll see every employee should be wearing a lanyard that is in blue. And key cards are coming to all the schools, but it's a multi-purpose thing. So this is considered our key card, and this is considered our badge. And I just feel really excited and honored that we have this in place now. So
That's great to hear, and I will second the thanks to Nick. I know how much time even a simple deployment can take, and this was not simple, that's for sure. Any questions for Heidi? All righty. Yes. At this point, public comment has passed, but yes, the public should be able to access the meeting. That's after the meeting, after the public comment period was, but it ideally should have stayed open if possible, so. Oh,
okay, so that's good to know.
we got some badge kinks to work out.
I did reach out to Nick and try to extend time for the phones to come in.
Yeah.
Because the other night they were staying.
Okay.
Awesome.
We'll take care of that.
But I didn't know if you wanted me to manually unlock the doors for anybody else who wants to come in tonight.
I'd say at this point, we're about to go into executive session, so I think we're good. But I really appreciate the update and appreciate your diligence. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to block anybody else.
No, for sure. We don't want to do that. You're absolutely correct. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Kinks to be expected. We will work them out, people.
We are.
With that, we'll move on to section 9, the calendar announcements. No major things to call out other than that board management days and time have switched now that we've got a new vice chair in place. They found a new schedule. And with that, we'll move on to 6.14, which we delayed. And Frank, do you want to give me a motion with the language right
Yeah.
there?
I move pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations with the Merrymeeting Employees Association.
Second.
Moved by Frank, seconded by Kim. Before we vote, to anyone listening at home, we're going to be shutting down the feed and not turning it back on. We will not be taking any action following this, and we will not be doing any business afterwards. We're going to let Nick get home. So thank you all very much. With that being said, all those in favor? Unanimous of those present, we are now in executive session.